Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Karlie and this is a mostly knitting podcast where sometimes we do talk about other things like sewing or natural dyeing, but today it's all knitting. We're going to talk about everything that I knit in 2024. We have a lot to get through today, so let's get started. So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about only the garments that I knit in 2024. I will have a separate video for all of the accessories like shawls and socks and things like that in a separate video, so keep your eye out for that. So today I'm going to be talking about everything that I knit garment-wise for the past year. I'm going to display everything in chronological order, so the very first finished object down to the very last finished object of 2024. And before we begin, I will start with some stats, and everything that I mentioned today will be listed and linked down below in the description box. And I will be talking about the pattern, the designer, the yarn that I used, and a little bit of details of the construction and if I would knit it again, if I've gotten a lot of wear out of it, and different things like that. If you have any questions about any of the items that I've mentioned here today, please feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll answer as best as I can. Okay, let's start with some stats. So in total, I knit 19 garments for the year of 2024. I did 2 cardigans, 5 pullovers, 1 vest, 5 tees, 2 tanks, and 4 children's sweaters. So the very first thing that I finished in 2024 was the Audrey Jacket by Cheryl Mokhtari, and this was knit in Gepard Garn Puno color 142 and Gepard Garn Teddy Deer in color 104. And both of those yarns were gifted from Gepard, as this was a test knit for Cheryl. And here is the lovely Audrey Jacket. This was knit top down and it is a drop shoulder construction. You go in later and you do the edging. I believe this was an I-cord bind off for the neck. It is a double knit button band and then I-cord for the sleeves and the bottom of the body. So this fluffy part of the cardigan is the teddy deer, and then the edging is knit in the Gepard Puno. I also used some handmade ceramic buttons for the button band that I got off of Etsy. This knit up fairly quickly considering it's a full jacket slash cardigan. It was pretty enjoyable to knit overall. The only thing that was frustrating about it was just the boucle yarn because it has little loops in it, so my needle tips would often get caught in the loop and that would slow me down quite a bit. But other than that, it was really simple, really easy, a really clear pattern, so I definitely recommend the pattern. The yarn although it slowed me down and it is a bit annoying working with boucle yarn in general, I really do love this yarn and it's quite soft. It feels good next to skin for me and it feels like pretty lightweight as well, but it's also so warm, like it does not let any of the cold air in whatsoever. So I can actually wear this on pretty cool days as a jacket and it keeps me pretty warm. I don't think I would knit this again just because I think one of these in my closet is enough, but I definitely recommend and I'm really glad that I knit this. The next finished object of 2024 was the Gallant Sweater by Kadri. I knit this in Juniper Moon Farm Beatrix in the color 17, which is Jasper, and this was gifted to me from Knitting Fever. And this was a really quick knit. I think I did this in about a week or two, maybe 2 weeks. You can actually see here, it's quite good lighting for it. There is a little bit of a dye lot issue just along the chest part, and I made my peace with it. I thought that it ended, or the color change happened at a pretty good spot on my body where it's just above my bust here, so I'm just embracing the color blocking with this sweater. But other than that, the sweater is amazing. It's top down raglan. There's no ribbing at the neckline, it's just straight stockinette, so you just go straight into knitting in the round, and you continue knitting in the round for the entire sweater. I would definitely say that this is an amazing sweater pattern for a beginner because I believe it's about Aran weight gauge. So it flies off the needles, it's super simple. I don't remember if there are any short rows. There might be optional short rows, But yeah, it's just a really quick, easy garment to start off if you're new to garment knitting. So I would like to actually knit this again. I don't know if I have any immediate plans to, but I could see myself knitting another one in the future. This yarn is also super soft, and I knit this, yeah, close to maybe it was in March or February, so maybe 9 months ago, and it's holding up really well. I mean, with any soft yarn, you can expect pilling, and there is a bit of pilling here, but I actually haven't depilled it since finishing this or ever, and I think it's holding up really well. So overall, I'm really pleased with this sweater. It was a little annoying at first to have this dye lot issue on the yoke here, but once I'm wearing it and I'm out and about, you can't really notice it. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this one. Next up, we have the Florencia by Claudia Quintanilla. This pattern and yarn was gifted to me from Eweknit Toronto, and I use Knitting for Olive cotton merino in the color dark ochre. So this is a bottom-up raglan, and it was my first time doing a bottom-up raglan. And I'm really happy with it. Again, it's a construction that I'm not going to choose to do if I have an option for a top down, but I think it worked out pretty well. And the instructions in the pattern were clear enough for me to understand what to do when it came time to joining the sleeves to the body. And I don't think, if I remember correctly, I don't think I was all that confused during the process of this. If you haven't knit bottom-up raglan before, you have to knit the sleeves bottom up separately and then the body bottom up separately, and then you attach all of those 3 pieces together, and then you continue working the yoke upwards. So that means you're doing decreases for the raglan instead of increases. So it is kind of finicky and annoying because I don't like having to cast on 3 separate items. So the body, then the 2 sleeves. I rather just cast on the neck and then grow the sweater after that. So I don't like that aspect of it. But the good thing about it is that once you hit the yoke and everything's connected, it's all of a sudden just flying off your needles because you're doing decreases, and it just really speeds up the process. So this pattern has really pretty eyelet details on the front and on the back, and then just plain stockinette for the sleeves. I did enjoy this. I won't be making this again in the future just because, again, I think I have one of these and that's enough for my wardrobe, and also because it's bottom up, it's not my favorite process. But I am really happy with the overall piece, and I really enjoyed working with the cotton merino from Knitting for Olive. That was my first time working with it. It feels really soft, and it's a really nice summer yarn in my opinion. Next up is the azucena-pullover by Claudia Quintanilla again, and this pattern was gifted to me from Eweknit Toronto. I ended up using discontinued yarn that was from my Nana's stash, so it was the brand Pingoin in just the white and gray color. I heavily modified this pattern and I graded it to be a children's size, so I think about like size 2 to 3 years old, and this is an adult only pattern, so it is heavily modified, but it turned out so well, and I was actually really proud of myself for being able to grade it to the proper size and that it fit my knees perfectly. The color work for this one is really fun. It's just a nice scalloped edge around the yoke and then some dainty little flowers beneath the yoke. There is an option to add beadwork, if I remember correctly, on the flowers to the color work on this sweater. I didn't add that just because I was giving this to a toddler and she definitely doesn't need any beadwork on her clothing, but this was really fun. It was top down and it flew off the needles, especially because I did it in a smaller size. I don't see myself knitting this one again, as I just don't think I need a sweater like this in my wardrobe, but it is a really beautiful pattern and it was well written and super clear. Next we have the farfa-top by the Knit Purl Girl. I knit this in, what is it called? Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the color Powder. This one took me a really long time. This was on my needles for almost exactly a year, I think, and really the only reason for that is I just kind of lost steam on it and I set it down for about 7 to 8 months and didn't pick it back up for a really long time. But I love the finished object. I think it's beautiful and I'm so happy that I knit it. So it's a top-down raglan. It's got some beautiful little fluttery bell sleeves, and it's got a keyhole detail at the back with some I-cord ties. The hem on the sleeves is a double folded hem, and then same with the bottom. And then the top is I-cord. So this one was a long project for me. It took a lot of motivation to get done because it's just worked on with pure silk, which is such a lightweight yarn. But eventually I got there and I'm really pleased with it. There are options with this pattern to do a longer sleeve and do another round of increases to make an even wider, longer bell sleeve. I would really love to have a version like that in my wardrobe, and maybe a couple years down the road I will knit that, but I don't see myself reknitting this anytime soon just because I know how long it took me. But I love it, and I'm really glad I have it in a neutral color. It's just a nice basic piece for me to have in my wardrobe. I have actually worn this quite a lot. I wear it a lot in the springtime. I find it's just like a perfect fabric for spring weather, and I think it's worn pretty well over time. There's a little bit of pilling that you might not be able to see on camera, but overall, I'm really happy with this one. I'm glad I did it. It was a long project, but I think it was worth it in the end. The next finished object of 2024 is the knus-light by Elsebeth Judith. I knit this in Elsebeth Lavold's Hempathy in the color olive, and this yarn was gifted to me from Knitting Fever. This is a top-down circular yoke t-shirt with all over texture. There is option just to do the texture for the yoke and then plain stockinette for the body. I really like the idea of having texture all throughout, so that's what I did. This was a super enjoyable knit for me. I really loved the process of doing the texture throughout the yoke and the body. It just broke up the pattern really nicely and made it really intriguing and engaging for me. I remember when I first showed this on a podcast, I said I would definitely make this again. I don't know if I will. I mean, I love the pattern, I love how it looks, and I enjoyed the process, but I actually don't find myself going to wear this a lot. I've maybe worn it a handful of times, and I'm not really sure why, because, again, I love the look of it. I think it's really cute. But yeah, I just haven't worn it as much as I thought I would. So, I don't know. I'm glad I knit it because it was really enjoyable, and maybe next year or this coming year, I'll wear it a bit more. But yeah, I think one is enough in my closet just because it is an all over texture. I don't think I need many more of these. This actually is a really good base for just a plain tee. If you wanted it without all of the texture, you could just go in and do stockinette, and I think this would be a really great base pattern for the tee. The yarn, I also really love this Hempathy yarn for summer weather. It's really lightweight and airy, and it just feels really good next to skin. We have the Tolsta tee next by Rebecca Clow. I'm sure all of you have seen this tee before. I knit this in Queensland collection dungarees rainbow tweed in the color 3006, which is honeysuckle. This yarn was also gifted to me by Knitting Fever. Now with this pattern, it comes with two different options for fingering weight or DK weight. So I did fingering weight. It is a top-down raglan tee with options to do a ton of different modifications. My modifications were that I just did a I-cord for all of the edging. So I did an I-cord for the top neckline, the sleeves, and the hem here. I love this tee. It's just a great basic to have in my closet. I did get quite a bit of wear out of it when I first finished it, but I found that I haven't been wearing it a lot lately, and I think the problem is that I needed to knit the depth of the yoke just a little bit longer, and then also the body a little bit longer as well. I find that there's just a little bit of bunching on my underarms, and it's really driving me nuts lately, so I haven't been pulled to wear this a lot lately. But I do love this sweater. If it were just a little bit, or shirt, if it were just a little bit longer in the raglan and in the body, I know I'd be getting a lot more wear out of it. I do see myself knitting another one of these. It's just a great base pattern to have, and I think I really like the modifications that I did with the I-cord. Sometimes I get a little bit sick of doing ribbing on everything, so I like to have I-cord in place of ribbing, and I just find it changes the feel of it to more of a t-shirt rather than a sweater feel. I always feel like ribbing really belongs on sweaters, but not so much on tees for my personal preference. So I think if I were to knit this again, I would definitely do the I-cord, and then yeah, I would just make it maybe a touch more oversized so I feel a little bit more comfortable wearing it. This yarn is a nice lightweight summer yarn as well. It's pretty much beige, but if you look closely, and I'm not sure if it will come off on camera, but there are flecks of hot pink, which I just found really fun during the knitting of this sweater. Next we have the Dearborn cardigan by Tina Say. I knit this in Elsebeth Lavold silky wool in the color Prussian blue. This yarn was also gifted to me by Knitting Fever, and this is a bottom-up cardigan. It has all over texture, and then the button band is knit as you go, and it is a really simple, easy texture, but it looks really beautiful. It's got some eyelets in there, and then it just alternates between knits and purls. And then here is the button band, which is knit as you go. And I was drawn to this cardigan because it kind of has a really cute like kimono shape to it, which I'm always drawn to. I thought this would be really good to wear over high-waisted skirts or pants, or even over dresses as well. Sometimes I do wear it with a long like romper, and it looks so cute with that because it hits just above my hips. And I really love with the sleeves that they kind of just bell out, but not in a really dramatic way. The process of this was pretty enjoyable for me. It took me about up until I finished the body to memorize the pattern for the texture of this knit. So once I got to the sleeves, it was pretty smooth sailing, but it's not difficult. It just took me a while to memorize it. And the only issue I have with this sweater is that there's no shaping for the neck here. So you work this bottom up, you work the back panel separately, then you have the two front pieces on hold, then you go and work the front right and then the front left, and you join the back and the front by doing a 3-needle bind off, I believe, but everything's just flat like rectangle basically, so there's no shaping. And I find that there's very little space here for my neck, so when wearing it I do feel like it's a bit constricting for me, and I don't love that, but other than that the fit's really nice, and that's just my only issue with this sweater. And I really like this yarn for it, the silky wool. It's so lightweight that I find that I'm mostly wearing this in the spring and summertime because it's just a nice light layer to have over top. It's not a heavy wool at all. It feels super light, so it's just a nice extra little layer for when it gets a little bit cold, like on summer nights. I don't see myself knitting this one again. I think one is enough, but I do recommend the pattern and the yarn. The next item of 2024 is actually what I'm wearing. So this was a self-drafted piece. I'm just calling this my wrap top. I knit this in Drops Belle in the color black. This is a top-down raglan, and it is a wrap top that's reversible. So I'm wearing it with the high neck and the wrap at the back, but you can also wear it with the wrap at the front and the high neck at the back. So I'll stand up here and give you a little bit of a viewing. This is actually one of my favorite pieces from the past year, I think mostly because it is a self-drafted piece and I'm just really proud of it. I love the look of it, and I really love the versatility of it, and being able to reverse the front and the back. It just makes it feel like I'm wearing a different top every time, and it goes well with so many pieces in my closet. I actually knit this specifically for this layered like tiered skirt that I made, and I thought a wrap top would look beautiful with it, so that's how this top came to be. I'm really happy with this piece. I'm so glad I decided to knit it. It was really fun to knit something on the go and not have a pattern to follow. I think it was just a really cool and different process for me at the time, and I am so glad that I did it. I do plan on making more in the future and different variations of it, some with some longer bell sleeves or balloon sleeves, and maybe even a cap sleeve version too. The next one is the Sabai top by Suzanne Mueller. I knit this in Queensland Collection Dungaree's Rainbow Tweed in the color Peridot, and this was also gifted to me from Knitting Fever. This pattern was really popular last year. It's a really simple top-down tank top, and I love mine. It is definitely beginner friendly if you're looking to get into garment knitting. It is really fun because you start in the round with just some raglan increases basically, and then once you're done those increases, you work the front flat and then you work the back flat, And then you do some increases for your armhole here, and then you join in the round, and it's just plain stockinette. I just did a regular bind off. There is an option to do ribbing for the neckline. I really like the look of stockinette rolled hem, so that's what I went with on this. I'm super happy with this one. I am definitely going to make more of this in the future. I loved knitting this. It was just really simple and mindless and a nice process. I believe I held the yarn double on this one, and this yarn also has some really fun flecks in it. You can see some hot pink in there, similar to my Tolsta tee. It's the same yarn. So I love this one. I do plan on knitting more of it. I think it's a really nice piece to have in the wardrobe. I also think that I could wear this as a vest over just a plain tee or a blouse, and I've definitely worn it a bunch throughout the summer just as a tank top. Next is the plain yoke tee 22 Solo by Les Knit. I knit this in Noro Campeto in the color 7, and this was also gifted to me from Knitting Fever. I modified this tee a little bit. I made it 3/4 length sleeves to have balloon sleeves, but other than that, it's all followed to pattern. This is just a really fun and playful and colorful sweater. This yarn is a mixture of silk and cotton, and so it's actually quite a good summer sweater. It's not too hot and it's not like too heavy at all. I had such a fun time knitting this just because I was so excited to see how this yarn was knitting up and what colors were coming up next. I unfortunately don't wear this a whole lot, although I love it and I think it's so fun and I just think it's beautiful overall. I just think that maybe the colors are a bit much for me and what I prefer wearing. So I love to look at it, but I don't gravitate towards wearing it a whole lot. I would definitely knit this pattern again, and I would love to do the tee version and just do maybe a really basic plain solid color yarn. I think I would wear it a lot more. But I do love it and I love to look at it and I think it's beautiful. I might keep this for another season or so and see if I do end up getting a little bit more wear. If not, I'm just going to either see if anybody in my life would like it or possibly donate. The next one is the Lily by Yumiko Alexander. I knit this in Juniper Moon Farm Zoe in the color Sage. This piece here is probably my most worn piece of the year, one of my favorites for sure. This is my second time knitting this. I knit this first a couple years ago and I did the tee version. I modified this one to be a tank, and this is actually a piece that is knit flat in pieces and seamed up the sides and at the shoulders. Typically, I would never go for a piece that is knit flat or seamed, but for whatever reason with this pattern, it's actually like quite enjoyable to me and I don't mind it at all. This lace is actually very easy. It looks really complicated and difficult to knit up, but it's super simple and you get the hang of it quite easily. I love the bottom of this as well. This piece is one of my most worn pieces because I wear this not only as a plain tank on its own in the summertime, but I wear it as a vest in the cooler months and I love it so much. It looks so cute over just a plain tee or a plain white long sleeve. I have other blouses too with like some flowy sleeves that it looks really cute under. So I'm so glad that I knit this. This is my second time knitting it and I for sure see more lilies in my future. I really like this yarn too. It's a blend of like cotton and linen, so I believe there's definitely cotton in it, and it's a really nice summer yarn, and I just think this color is beautiful. So if you are looking to getting into lace knitting, I do recommend this. It is knit flat, so on all the wrong side you're purling, but you don't have to do any lace stitches on the wrong side. It's just purl and then you do your lace stitches on the right side. This pattern only comes in 3 sizes, but it's definitely doable and so easy to modify to make into a larger or smaller size. I actually modified mine to make smaller because my original one was super boxy. So I went down in yarn weight and in needle size, and it became a tighter fit for me, which I really enjoyed for this style of tank top. And if I wanted to make it even smaller, I could definitely decrease the stitch count as well. The next few items I actually don't have in my possession anymore as they were pieces that I knit for others, but I do have pictures, so we'll talk about them briefly. The first one is the Strange Brew by Tin Can Knits. I knit this for my friend And we used drops Charisma, color 52, 86, 66, 1, and 54. So I did the top-down DK version of the Strange Brew. And if you aren't familiar with this pattern, it gives you a ton of different colorwork motifs, and it's basically a recipe, so you can pop in those motifs anywhere you like or pop in your own motifs, and it just gives you a nice base to work with. So I had a really good time knitting this one up. It was so fun using all the different colors and playing with the different colors and the colorwork motifs. I think I modified a lot of the colorwork charts to incorporate at least 3 or 4 colors. And that was my first time working with more than 2 colors for some color work, so I had a really fun time. I found that it was really fun to work with more than 2 colors for color work. I really enjoyed the process of it, and I have done some other color work projects after that with multiple colors because I just found that it was so much fun. So I definitely want to make one of these again. I can highly recommend this pattern. I know it's a really popular pattern, and for good reason. It's so versatile. It has a huge size range from baby to all like adult size man, and so many different options for construction too. So this is a really great pattern, and the yarn was pretty good too to work with. It's 100% wool. I don't have the sweater with me, but I'm pretty sure that it's wearing pretty good over time. We have a second Strange Brew to talk about, and I did a baby version for my nephew. I just did one in one solid color, and I used Noro Natsumaki in the color 6, and this was gifted to me from Knitting Fever. I knit this sweater just for my nephew's first birthday. It was really cute. He loves it. He loves wearing his knit sweaters. The only downside about this was that the neckline was so large, and I have talked about this in a previous episode, but it basically became an off-the-shoulder sweater for him. I think as he grows into it, it'll be a little bit better, and if he wears a tee underneath, it's fine. That was a little bit disappointing. I don't know if that was the sweater or my gauge or the yarn, or maybe all of those things coming together to make it just too big of a neckline. But other than that, it worked out pretty well, and the colorway of the yarn looked so cute, and I think it was a really good option for a children's sweater. Next we have the Northland Sweater by Petite Knit. I knit this for my boyfriend, and we chose Finley Dye Works Superwash Merino in the color Mia, which is a worsted weight yarn. We chose this yarn at Knit City, Calgary, and he really wanted a purple sweater, so it was really fun to find some worsted weight purple yarn that he loved and that I loved also. And this sweater was a huge success. I was so happy that I finally knit him a sweater. I've been wanting to knit him a sweater for a really long time. So it fits him perfectly. It was not a surprise to him. Like I said, he picked out the yarn with me and he tried it along as we went because I wanted to be certain that this was going to fit him perfectly, and it does. I really recommend this pattern and the yarn too. I plan on making more of these for him, maybe one other one. I think that would be great for him to have in his wardrobe, as he wears his one now a lot, which I love to see, but that just tells me I think that he could definitely use another one. It's a really great basic sweater to have in one's wardrobe, I think, and it was really enjoyable to knit. It's worked top down, and you have, maybe it's like contiguous or a saddle shoulder, I can't quite remember. So you go work the increases for the shoulders, and then you do your regular increases for the raglan, and then you just work down from there and all stockinette until the ribbing for the hems, and it was really enjoyable. It was actually really quick too. I think this took me about 2 weeks or so because I was just totally in the zone when knitting this. But yes, I think I see myself knitting this one again. Next we have the Brownstone by Jared Flood. I knit this using Barocco Lanas in the color Eggplant. This was a sweater that I knit for my dad, and we chose the pattern out together. We just fell in love with this type of style and thought this would be perfect for him. He wanted something that had an open neckline so he wouldn't get too overheated, and this was just the perfect pattern. So I didn't realize it until I cast on, but it was a bottom-up raglan again, and I'm really glad that I had the previous experience of knitting the Florencia, so I knew what to do for the bottom-up raglan, because I found that overall this pattern was quite descriptive and pretty thorough. It just had a little bit of missing details, I found personally, for joining the sleeves to the body. I managed okay because of that previous experience, but I think if this was your first time doing a bottom-up raglan, you might have some questions along the way. Other than that, it was a really great pattern. It was quite enjoyable. It was a quick knit for me because, again, I was really in the zone with knitting it. I knit this in I think just over 2 weeks, and it was kind of nice because you knit the sleeves and the body separately, and I flew through the sleeves. It was just really nice because they weren't attached to a big sweater, so it just felt like it flew by. And then once I joined everything and I was working the decreases for the raglan, that also flew by. Again, this was a worsted weight yarn, so it sped that process up a lot. The only finishing details I had to do was sewing up the underarm because it's a bottom-up raglan, and then picking up stitches for the shawl color. The shawl color didn't take too long either. It actually went by a lot faster than I expected. In order to get the back of the collar higher than the front, there are a lot of short rows, but I personally love doing short rows. I find them really fun and satisfying to do, so I had a really great time working the shawl collar of this. This pattern calls for some buttons at the bottom of the collar opening. I decided to go without because it just fit my dad perfectly that he wasn't going to be closing them, and it was nice and open for him. So I left those out, but overall I really enjoyed this process, which was surprising considering it was bottom up, but it was really enjoyable, and I don't see myself knitting this again, but I do recommend the pattern if you're familiar with doing a bottom-up raglan, and the yarn overall was pretty enjoyable too. He hasn't had this sweater for too long, so I'm not sure on how it's wearing over time, but I think it will be okay. The next item is the anchor sweater by Petite Knit. I knit this for my nephew for Christmas, so I knit this in Estelle Yarns worsted, and it is color Q6 12 962. This, I'm sure you've seen this sweater before, and I won't spend too much time on it, but it's a top-down circular 1x1 ribbed yoke and then plain stockinette on the body. This one was a huge success also. I gave it to him just a couple days ago on Christmas. He immediately tried to put it on. It fits him well. It's a little oversized and big, but he'll grow into it nicely, and he can always fold up the sleeves for him. He's only like 14 months old, so I knit size 2 to 3 for him so he can grow into it, and I'm really happy with it overall. I think it looks so sweet. I also knit the Hermes Jumper by Petite Knit using the exact same yarn, so the Estelle worsted color Q6 12 962, and this was a Christmas present for my niece, so my nephew's older sister, and I knit size 3 to 4 for her. I don't think I've seen her wear it yet. I'm not sure if she tried it on. There's a lot going on when we were opening up gifts, and she was pretty preoccupied with all of her toys in front of her, but I do think that it will fit her nicely. She's about to turn 3. It might be a little bit oversized, but she can grow into it, and I really enjoyed knitting this one as well. It's just a really quick knit. I love all of Petite Knit's children patterns, and I'm sure I'll be knitting more of these too. The final item that I finished in 2024 is one for myself, so I actually have it here with me. This is the Tuku Warmer Slipover by Tina Hutanemi, and hopefully I got her name correctly. I knit this in Juniper Moon Farm Saxony in color 105 Feldgrau. This one, I love this piece so much. It is a garter stitch slipover. It's got a split hem. You actually cast on for the collar here. You work it in the round, and then you work the front piece and the back piece separately and work them flat. And then you go in and seam the sides. So I do love this piece. I love the finished object so much. I've already worn it a bunch, but I unfortunately cannot recommend the pattern. There was a lot of errors in it. So yeah, I don't feel comfortable recommending this pattern, but I can recommend the yarn. It is so soft. It feels so good. I actually really wanted to do a garter stitch project for this pattern because I think it would just look really good. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it looks with garter stitch. And this yarn was also gifted to me from Knitting Fever, and thanks to Knitting Fever I've been able to try so many different yarns this year, and it's just been really fun to try all these different yarns that I normally wouldn't be able to. So I love this piece. I know I'm going to get a ton of wear out of it. I do want to make another one despite the pattern having a lot of errors, but since I've gotten through the first one, I think it'll be easier the second time around, knowing where the mistakes are in the pattern. But I love this because it's really nice to wear over blouses, especially blouses that have a deep arm, because the armhole is quite deep in this one, so it's quite comfortable. And it's just a really nice layer to have over top and not get too overheated. So I love this one. I think this is my first slipover, and I really want to make more slipovers. So those are all of the garments that I knit in 2024. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and going through everything from the past year. It's been really fun to see what I had on my needles and to go through everything and see what I gravitated toward wearing and pieces that I maybe didn't wear as much as I thought I would. I think it's a really nice time to reflect and see what I want to make in the future and what I want to stay away from in the future. I do plan on filming another video recapping all the accessories that I knit over the past year, so keep an eye out for that. Until then, happy knitting, happy making, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye!